Hello, everybody. As I take a sip of tea, I am here today on Sunday a little later than usual because we had a conference to attend, but back on Sunday around noon for a poetry feature. So, my name is Margaret Pennard. I'm a historical fiction and speculative fiction, otherwise known as fantasy, author. And I'm here to do some poetry stuff, some favorites for recommendations for National Poetry Month, which is April. Um, so I've gone through my very small poetry collection because I'm not a huge expert by any means. But if you wanted to participate in poetry in some way and you haven't found your in, don't lose hope. Uh, It is so widely diverse that I'm sure you can find something that you like, so you don't have to say, "I hate all poetry." It's like rap music or country music. There's always, like, one song that is appealing that you can find. At least I hope so. So, here's what we're gonna do today. I'm going to tell you about, like, the 2 poles and sort of, like, the middle ground of the things that I like in poetry, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the books that I'm going to present that I really like and read from each to give you a little sample. So maybe you can try out these poets. Some are alive, some are dead. And then just give you a little preview of what's coming next because I'm pretty excited about Wednesday's video as well. But if you're a poetry fan already, hey, maybe you can find a new poet love here today. Hello, Shannon was here to say made friends with the like button. She was at the conference as well. She spoke on Kickstarter and it was amazing on Saturday. So bookmark on for the win. We also have RC here. He hasn't been here in a while. Hey, stranger, how you doing? So, boop, poetry themed recommendations. And if you have questions, if you have questions as I go through, pop them in the chat and we can chat about it. As I said, I'm not an expert in poetry, but as you'll see, I've got sort of one side that I really like and then another side that I really like. So I have done poetry themed live streams before, and what I've highlighted then is um, W.H. Auden Funeral Blues, which is because there's an actor who delivers that poem in Four Weddings and a Funeral, and I think I was just impressed as a young person, and it's like burned its way onto my brain. It's the poem that starts "Stop all the clocks," and it ends with "Nothing now can come to any good." It's just really beautiful. And I've also highlighted friends' books. So a writing group that I was in had a Molotov as a member, and he's actually coming out with a memoir that has had a rocky road to publication, but that is pretty cool. He's a poet and a memoirist and Portland person, but originally from Russia, so you'll hear a lot about Russia stuff in his memoir. Also, our YouTube friend, JD Estrada, I have his Ballads of Hope and Joy, which I read from before. So if you're looking for some hopeful poetry, there's always our friend JD. And then the first poem, I gave myself a script. Let's stick to it. The first poem is maybe one of the first poems I recited for school. And so let's see if I can remember it. I've got it up in case I need to switch to the tab, but 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, and 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to bring them all, 1 ring to bind them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. Oh, it was so close. Okay, what phrase did I miss? 1 ring to rule them all. That's right. It's the most common phrase that you forget when under pressure. So So, yes, what you just heard was from Lord of the Rings, and I'm a huge fan. And that is one type of poetry that appeals to me. It's based on folklore, it's based on medieval poetry from Scandinavia, the Norse traditions, as well as Middle English traditions, which were influenced or somehow involved. And if you go to, as I did, tolkiengateway.net, they have some of the poems listed as well as the inspirations for them according to Tolkien lore. And so they put other poems that directly influenced Tolkien's version or Tolkien's creation, and I thought that was really fascinating. So, I'm not into medieval history, but this rhythm and this kind of sound actually really appeals to me, probably because it's attached to this childhood memory of Lord of the Rings and reading it and enjoying it. So that was the first poem. There's just to give you a taste of this, um, there's another poem that's inspired by The Wanderer, which is an Old English poem, and I'll put the link in the chat in case you want to explore and be a Lord of the Rings nerd with me. And then I'll read the English, the modern English portion. It'll sound familiar. Where now the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing? Where is the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where is the hand on the harp string, and the red fire glowing? Where is the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They have passed like rain on the mountain, like a wind in the meadow. The days have gone down in the west behind the hills into shadow. Who shall gather the smoke of the dead wood burning, or behold the flowing years from the sea returning? Shivers! Shivers, because this is predicting the end of a race, and don't we all feel like we're at the end of the human race sometimes? But Tolkien also gives us lovely, excitable, um, fun for your mouth type poetry, and that is mostly in The Hobbit's arena or Tom Bombadil. And this one is a short one from Tom Bombadil. Hey now, come hoy now, whither do you wander? Up, down, near or far, here, there, or yonder. Sharp ears, wise nose, swish tail and bumpkin, white socks, my little lad, and old fatty lumpkin. This is when he's calling his ponies. It's very playful and it rhymes and you've got a rhythm and it feels very Shire-ish. So that nostalgic England that like Tolkien looked back to. And then finally, we've got one that is composed by Bilbo, and it's about another character, Strider or Aragorn. And it is a poem that, once you know more about the books, reveals more about the character because it's one character's insight to another. And it takes, again, inspiration from common sayings in our world and drops them into Tolkien's world. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. So that's just a glorious little paean to our friend Aragorn, the prince among men. So, okay, the Lord of the Rings section is now over. We can proceed to the more traditional poetry. So, a while ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, a friend sent me this book called Soul Food, and I think I read a different poem from this last time, Nourishing Poems for Starved Minds. So there's one in here that's just short and sweet and speaks to maybe creators who are feeling torn in different directions about how they should go about their creative life. It's called Tree by Jane Hirschfield, and she's famous. I've even heard of her. It is foolish to let a young redwood grow next to a house. Even in this one lifetime, you will have to choose. that great calm being, this clutter of soup pots and books. Already the first branch tips brush at the window. Softly, calmly, immensity taps at your life. I just really liked that when I went through and sort of tried to pick some poems today. Um, so yes, and then the next one is especially appropriate for tomorrow. It's called The Eclipse by Richard Eberhardt. I stood out in the open cold to see the essence of the eclipse, which was its perfect darkness. I stood in the cold on the porch and could not think of anything so perfect as man's hope of light in the face of darkness. So, yeah. I read poetry when I am looking for inspiration, like ups, like hopeful sayings, and so that was one of them. I'm also reading poetry when I'm feeling depressed and sad and I want to wallow in it. I want someone else to affirm that that is okay. And sometimes poetry is like playful um and joyful. And so it's just like fun to listen to the sound and the sing song and someone having fun with language. Like this one. This is one of my little souvenir books from Scotland. It's called The Little Book of Scottish Rain by Ron Butlin, illustrated by Tim Kirby. And basically, it's a lot of dialect words about rain with little illustrations that are pretty comic, and then a little ditty about that type of rain. So I picked one out of here because I can't leave Scotland out of the mix. There is a type of rain called Perigian blast, and I'm not sure if that's how you say it, that's how you spell it. Perigean, a coastal wind and rain associated with strong tides. And that's the picture associated with it there. Someone's pouring water and it's going all over the table to find the glass. And the ditty is, down the glen and over the brae, a Perigean blast is coming our way. Let's shut fast the windows, bolt tight the door. Let's drink to the storm, then pour out some more. So, engaging in one of their favorite activities. I guess it's not water. I guess it's whiskey. But Perigean blast. Nice. So I talked a little bit about being sad and wallowing, and this is another little book that has maintained its status as a favorite because when I've gone through heartbreak in my life, this has been like a darkly comic pick-me-up. It's called How to Survive the Loss of a Love. And basically, it's a very short book with a few sections that has a sort of bullet list and sort of psychological insights on the left side, and then a poem on the right, or um, it's like not a worksheet exactly, but where is it? Like a little essay. So like they'll put more things on the right-hand side. So I have already read one from here before, so I picked a different one. And I think I've got two actually, because they're very short. So this one is just titled To Give You Up. God, what a bell of freedom that rings within me. No more waiting for letters, phone calls, postcards that never come. No more creative energy wasted in letters never mailed. And after a while, no more insomnia, no more insanity. Some more happiness, some more life. All it took was giving you up, and that took quite a bit. I don't know. Maybe it hits you different, but I really like this sort of simple um, cadence that just conveys simple truths like that. And the next one doesn't have title. The last day of my loving you is at hand. In hand, a pen, writing one of the last poems exclusively yours. My pain fades as my love does, as autumn did. Winter is too intense a season to miss someone in. The last leaf fell today. The first snow falls tonight. And it just sounded hopeful. I like the seasonal focus and also like the hopeful finish. The twist at the end is like one of my favorite things about poetry. And again, this is, I think poems are mostly by Melba Colgrove, PhD, other authors, Harold Bloomfield, MD, and Peter McWilliams, fabulous trio. Lots of little books of poetry because they don't tend to be in massive books unless you're gathering lots of poets. And I don't have any of those, probably because I've moved so many times. So, Shannon says, I don't typically read poems, and she's back at the conference for the last presentation. The last presentation was on publicity, and I figured I would go back for that and watch the recording. So, yeah, nice to have a go-to to get through tough times, for sure. Appreciate Shannon being here. So busy. All right, so then I've got 3 more. Yes. Okay. So I am bringing back Auden. Again, another little volume of Auden. Every Man's Library Pocket Quotes here. I've got a couple of his, and the first one is called The History of Science. So actually, I started in Lord of the Rings and Middle English and that sort of folklore patina of old times, right? So that's one pole of my poetry predilection, if you will. And the other pole is like modern political, really raw and hit you in the gut kind of poetry. So Auden is really like the in-between outlier in between. That doesn't make sense logically, but he's from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, much later actually. But that's when I thought he was. And yeah, not all of his poetry is for me, but some of them, like Funeral Blues, really hit. So here's one that I found this morning. The History of Science. Oh, and I liked how it spoke to me. So hopefully this speaks to you as well. All fables of adventure stress the need for courtesy and kindness. Without the helpers, none can win the flaxen-haired princess. They look the ones in need of aid, yet thanks to them, the gentle-hearted third brother beds the woken queen, while seniors who made cantankerous replies to crones, and dogs who begged to share their rations, must expiate their pride as daws or windswept bachelor stones. Few of a sequel, though, have heard. Uneasy pedagogues have censored, all written reference to a brother younger than the third. Soft spoken as new moon this fourth, a son of gifts to all he met with. But when advised, go south a while, smiled, thank you, and turned north. Trusting some map in his own head, so never reached the goal intended. His map, of course, was out, but blundered on a wonderful instead. A tower not circular, but square. A treasure not of gold, but silver. He kissed a shorter sleeper's hand and stroked her raven hair. Dare sound authority confess that one can err his way to riches, win glory by mistake, his dear through sheer wrong-headedness? There's hope! So that was cute. That was like the person you don't hear about in the fairy tale is the one who blunders his way to a different sleeping princess and wins a different contest altogether. And then authorities don't want you to know about that path. And I thought, yes, that's my fairy tale. Sign me up. Oh, here we go. One out, one in. We have a Barrett in the house, and Barrett just finished with his Gut Instinct podcast, which I popped in from the conference before I popped in here to do my live stream. I will definitely be going back to listen to you and Morgan chat. I'm very excited about that one. This one is getting into the more modern period and the more political and raw poetry. So again, this is from W.H. Auden. It's called August 1968. Let me know if any person in mind in today's world comes to your head when you hear this. August 1968. The ogre does what ogres can, deeds quite impossible for man. But one prize is beyond his reach. The ogre cannot master speech. About a subjugated plain, among its desperate and slain, the ogre stalks with hands on hips, while drivel gushes from his lips. And that is a little bit more graphic and gross than I would normally endorse for poetry, but, call a spade, if that is appropriate to say. Yes. Yes, spirits here, political and raw, bring it on. I can think of someone. Drivel, right? Who knew? Auden called it in 1968. Prescient. All right. Aging, I guess. Wait, I missed one in my little lineup here. Okay. Nope, this is last. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to go in the order that I thought would make sense, and it probably doesn't even matter. But this poetry collection by J.C. Mehta is called Savagery. It's an Indigenous poetry collection. Oregon native shows. I got this local because it's by Airlie Press, which is a local small press. J.C. Mehta is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I think this is. Well, no, the Scottish Rain guy is probably still alive. But I'm getting to, again, the political, the raw, the people who are still alive. Citizen of the Cherokee Nation, they are the author of over a dozen books and the recipient of numerous poet-in-residence posts around the globe, etc. So I chose one out of this one that sort of, wait, was this last? This is supposed to be last. I'm going to read it now. It doesn't matter. Okay. It's called Aging. My God, who would want to do their 20s again? The teenage years, drunk in angst, where the childhood traumas are big as whales and our parents are acerbic gods. I barely survived the first time around that macabre carousel. Just look at these scars. The first threads of silver, the laugh lines running deep, and the crow's feet cawing with lungs of steel echoing over weathered tombstones. Is it strange that getting old fits me like a good suit, goes down like a buttery oyster to choose to perfection? I wear these new lines like the sweater that smells of you, comfortable in the cloying, fragile in the flailing. And I thought I was going to change the title of this stream to Fragile in the Flailing because I love that so much. I may still do it. So that's lovely. So that's like a modern poet who's still working, who's excavating their traumas to try to process things and sharing it. And I think that's beautiful. Okay, two more. National Poetry Month, everybody. So go to the poetry open mic with JC and Morgan. Yeah, if that's going to happen later this month. So you've all heard me talk about this book before, but you may not have known about the poetry in it. All We Can Save, Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis does have essays about what people are doing to combat climate catastrophe, but it also has different ways of people's processing the trauma of climate catastrophe, such as poetry. It's also got a few illustrations that are very simple, but accompany the text. So I went back and mined this one. You can see all the places that I turned down corners. It was hard to choose. But yeah, this is a favorite from the last 2 years. So I picked a different poem to share with you. It's called, no, I have read this once, but that's okay. It's called To Be of Use by Marge Piercy. And she's famous. I've heard her name, I think, as an author rather than a poet, but this is not a researched, this is just a share poetry stream. So let your ears enjoy. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals, bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. I'm working towards it. Work that is real. Okay, and then the last one, hello, Comely Web Shop. The last one is an overlay because I just listened to this on audio from Libro.fm, the sweetest smelling purveyor of audiobooks worldwide. It's called Worldly Things by Michael Kleber-Diggs. And I read this on the 31st of March because I was driving back home. This is where I listened to it. It's very short. Again, it's like these small poetry collections. They're going to be thin. And this was, I think, a 2-hour audiobook. And I had a hard time describing what I liked about it, but I did post a comment on the video that I forgot about, which is that he called one of the forms of his poems a golden shovel. And I thought he said shuffle because it was taking lines and shuffling the order. And it was very creative and very ingenious. But then I looked up his site and it's actually called a golden shovel. And someone else recently invented this, like in the last 30 years. And he was doing that type of poem to honor them. And I thought, shovel. Why is it called a golden shovel? So if you know the answer to that mystery, let us know down in the comments. But yeah, Michael Kleber-Diggs, new poet to me, and lots of poetry about the modern moment of racial relations, how they're being renegotiated, how people are challenging the status quo and pushing for equality. And I loved that. And he reading his poems will have much more effect than I do. But there was one that I thought I could read of his that is available from his website. It's called Gloria Mundi, and that'll be my last one. And Gloria Mundi originally sounded to me like the name of a person, and then I realized, oh, Gloria Mundi, like of the world, glory of the world or to the world in Latin. I've never studied Latin, so I don't know what it means, but it vaguely recalls Latin roots. So the more academic in the class can let me know what it actually means, but it's not necessary for the enjoyment of the poem. So I'll read that. Gloria Mundi by Michael Kleber-Diggs. Come to my funeral dressed as you would for an autumn walk in the woods. Arrive on your schedule. I give you permission to be late even without good cause. If my day arrives when you had other plans, please proceed with them instead. Celebrate me there. Keep dancing. Tend your gardens. Live well. Don't stop. Think of me forever assigned to a period, a place, a people. Remember me in stories. Not the first time we met, not the last, a time in between. Our moment here is small. I am too. A worldly thing among worldly things. 1 part per 7 billion. Make me smaller still. Repurpose my body. Mix me with soil and seed. Compost for a sapling. Make my remains useful, wondrous. Let me bloom and recede, grow and decay. Let me be lovely, yet temporal, like memories, like mahogany. Ta-da! So, away with words. Yeah, exactly. Poetry is like a sigh. So look up some of these poems. If you have a favorite poet that I didn't cover, which is very likely because I covered like two very different ends of a continuum, drop it in the comments. Let me know if you're new, if you've studied it, if you have a different favorite. And the one thing that I wanted to let people know about is coming up is the next video. So I did mention last live stream that when I came back, I reorganized my books. I posted a couple pictures on Twitter about it because it was pretty funny. It always takes up my whole bed when I do this. And what I saw and realized I should do it something about is that I have a whole big unread section for historical fiction. Like I get it and I don't read it fast enough. So I need to look at that. And the other one is books written in 1950s. So I haven't addressed that one. I did not know why that was such a big section, possibly because I think they're earlier and they weren't, and so then I don't read them. I don't know. But what we're going to do for the next live stream is talk about the eras. And because eras is sort of a trigger word these days, I'm calling it my historical fiction eras tour. Is that not genius? No, I know. Thank you. And I'm going to go through and talk about the books on my shelf. So it'll kind of be like a bookshelf tour, but I'm also going to ask you to help me decide. And if you want to read any of these eras with me of historical fiction, you can jump on the bandwagon. Ooh. Leslie is here from Bookskers and Purrs. She says, popping in for a quick hello as my internet is being a spotty mess. My author crush, Hanif Abdurraqib, also has several poetry collections. I know. Enjoy your Sunday. I'll watch the replay. Yes, and I requested a couple of his books, one novel, one poetry collection. I don't know if it's a novel. It's like The Little Devil in America. I don't know if it's a novel or essay collection or what. But that one is on its way, and the poetry collection is still something in the bowels of the library system. But I'm very excited that they're coming to me, and yeah, I'll be reading Leslie's favorite author pretty soon. So that'll be fun. And this is the link for that in case you want to turn on notifications. It's unlisted right now because I wasn't sure about the thumbnail. I don't know if I'm allowed to put a picture of Taylor Swift up. I mean, I think I can. Anyway, let me know what you think if you want to sneak over and secretly review the thumbnail before it goes public. That will be my regular time of Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, and I will see you there. Until then, diversify that reading list. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have some poetry that makes you happy or relieved or joyful or playful or relaxed or grateful or inspired. Pick a word and drop a poem and share it with us. And I'd love that for our community. Thank you so much for watching and have a great week, everybody. Bye.